Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss any update from Tech Primers.
In the last video, we saw what is a graph database. In this particular video, we are going to see how to create a Spring Boot application with a Neo4j graph database. Neo4j is one of the graph database which is widely used. I'm going to use the Neo4j database and host it in my laptop, and I'm going to use a Spring Boot application to connect to that and retrieve the data from that particular graph database and then show it in a REST endpoint. In order to do that, I have Docker installed. I already have Docker installed in my laptop. It is just running. If you don't know what is Docker and if you want to use Docker, do check out my videos on Docker. I already have Docker installed. I am going to use Docker to run my Neo4j as a container. So which basically means I'm just running the Neo4j server in a container. I can also download the Neo4j individually and then start it up, but I want to make it simpler so that I can concentrate more on the Spring Boot part. So I am just going to use the Docker image of the Neo4j, which is official, and Neo4j colon 3.0. I'm going to use the 3.0.12 version of Neo4j, and this is the command. So I'm going to run this Docker image, which is nothing but Neo4j colon 3.0 on the port 7474, and there is one more port called 7687. This is for the driver connectivity. I'll show you what driver we are using, and 7474 is the portal with which you can access the Neo4j UI or the backend. So let me hit this command. This will now bring up the Neo4j container or using the Docker. So once this particular Neo4j server is up, I'll be able to access Neo4j via the port 7474. So I can directly hit localhost colon 7474 and connect to this particular Neo4j instance. The version which I'm going to use here is 3.0.12. And the port which I mentioned here 7687, this is for a driver called Bolt. So Bolt is enabled in 7687. This is something like a JDBC connectivity. So meanwhile, let's go to the Spring Initializer. As always, I'm going to create the Spring Boot project from the Spring Initializer. I'm going to name it as com tech primers. Let's make it a Spring Boot Neo4j example -1. The dependencies which I require are obviously Spring MVC. I'm going to use a REST endpoint and expose the data. Also, I need the Neo4j. So there is a Neo4j dependency. We can directly add that. The version of Spring Boot which I'm going to use is 14. Right now 14 is not showing up, but I'll just use 14. I'll generate this and then change the POM to 14. Let me meanwhile unzip this project and open in IntelliJ. Let's go to the terminal. See this, the server has started and it is saying failed to authenticate. This is because I'm trying to connect from here. Let's say I want to connect to that particular instance. I want to connect to the Neo4j instance, so I can hit the browser with 7474 as the port number, localhost colon 7474. This will directly connect me to the Neo4j server and it will redirect to a instance. If you see here, the default password is Neo4j. I need to change this password for the first time. I'll just make it as pass. You can set it to whatever you want if you're running locally. That's it. So this is the Neo4j instance. If you see here, there are no databases, nothing. I'll show you how to create the data. Neo4j uses something called the Cipher query language, which is like SQL, but it is not like exactly same as SQL. We have to write the queries in a different style. So we cannot use select star from or something, which we use in a relational database inside Neo4j. I'll show you that, but I will not cover the in-depth of what each command mean, but I'll cover whenever I write a query. I'll just show you what it is and what it does. Coming back to the Maven project, I wanted to use Spring 14. I wanted to use Spring 14, so let me change that POM entry. Also, I need to add a dependency for the Bolt driver. So we saw what is a Bolt, right? It just opened a port in the Neo4j with which our application can connect, and I added the dependency here. This is the Bolt driver. I'm going to use the version 2.1.1. With this driver, our API will be connecting to the Neo4j instance directly. So let the dependencies get resolved. The dependencies got resolved. Let's go ahead and create our files. As always, I'm going to use the user example. Similar to how we saw a IMDb example, what I'm going to create is I'm going to create list of users and movies, and the users are now going to rate movies. So I'm going to use a user example. Let's create the packages. I need model, I need a service, I need a JPA repository. We are going to use Spring JPA, and we are going to use Neo4j repository. So all these folders are getting created. I'll just create the package for those. Also, we need a resource which we can expose our API. The model which we are going to use is user and also movie. What are the different movies the user is going to rate, right? Now let's go ahead and create the resource. The resource is going to be called as user resource. I'm going to use the Spring MVC. I'll just say REST controller. The REST endpoint which I'm going to give is REST slash Neo4j slash user. We have created the user pojo. Now the fields which I wanted are, I wanted an ID which could be a graph ID, which is the generic unique identifier with which the graph nodes can be identified. Also, I need to provide the name of the user. So I'll just say name, and also I will say age. So that the users have age. That's it. I don't need anything else. I'll just add constructor, empty constructor. Also, I'll add some getters. Same way with the movie. I'm going to create a pojo. In the movie, I'll have the same long, which is going to be an identifier. Then I need to provide a title to the movie. It's a string. So I'll just say title. Now I want to also have the director of this movie. So I'll just say these. Similar to that, I'll create all getters and the empty constructor. Done. Now, in order to make this compatible with a Neo4j entity, we have to annotate these, right? In a normal Spring JPA, we annotate it with entity, but in terms of Neo4j representation, we will have to use node entity. So node entity is specific to the Neo4j implementation. I'm going to use the same node entity. Also, since this is a identifier, I'm just going to say this is a graph ID. So nothing else. I don't need to have anything special apart from that in the movie. Here also we are going to have node entity, and this is going to be graph ID. Also, I'm going to relate movies to a user. If I query a particular user, I'm going to get the list of movies this guy has rated. So I'm going to create a new variable called list of movies, right? List of movie. So that way I know that these people have rated these movies. So that is what I wanted to know. Also, this is a relationship, right? So both these are separate entities, and I'm going to create a relationship between these two. So I need to annotate it with a relationship saying what type of relationship it is. I need to say what type it is. I'm going to say that people, these users rated these movies. So I'm just going to call it with a name called rated. So you can provide any name. You can even if you have actors and who are going to act in the movies, you can say actors who acted in the movie or something like that. The direction which I'm giving is incoming, because all these movies are separate entities and these are going to be added to the user. So I'm going to have the direction as incoming relationship. You can even have outgoing relationship based on that. So let's not cover that in this video, but I'll just what I have done here is I've created list of users and list of movies. Each user can rate different movies, and all these users who have rated different movies are inside a single entity now. Now let's go and use the resource. So in the resource, I'm going to auto wire the service. So I have not created the service. Let's create the service. I'm going to say user service. Let me create the service now. I'm going to annotate it with service, and let's go here. The first REST endpoint I'm going to queue here is nothing. I'm not going to have anything. So if somebody hits rest slash neo4j slash user, it's going to return everything. So it's going to return all the data in this particular graph database. So let's go here, and the data type which I'm going to return is collection of users. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a service.getAll. So that is what I'm writing here, nothing else. So let's create this method. This method doesn't exist, so I'm going to create it in the service. So inside the service, we will have to now use the repository, right? So I'm going to create the repository. The repository doesn't exist. We have to create a repository called user repository. So if you know Spring JPA, we have to create a repository, and it is an interface. I'm going to use the Neo4j repository in order to use Neo4j. So Spring has created something called Neo4j repository, and I'm going to use it. We need to provide the type of object or the POJO, and we need to provide the primary key as always, right? So we have provided that. I'm going to auto wire dot user repository, and here I'm going to retrieve that user repository dot. Here I cannot do find all. If I do a find all, it will be normal, but I want to create a custom query which I want to use. So for now, what I will do is I'll just say get all users, and I'll create this method in the repository. I'll need to provide the query, but I'll provide it in a while. I need to provide the query, right, which is pending. So let's leave that aside for now. So let's go and check whether all our data is ready or not. So from the user resource, we have a service. We are calling the service directly, and we have added the repository. We have the POJO ready. Movie POJO is ready. The user POJO is also ready. We are done. Now we need to add properties. So in order to connect to the Neo4j database, we need to add some properties. I'm going to by default use 80814 port. In Spring, right? Spring has added some properties with which you can provide the default port number, or how does it need to connect, right? So for the Neo4j instance, if you notice, I had given the username as Neo4j and the password as pass, right? So we need to provide that here. So I'm going to provide spring.data.neo4j.uri. The URI is bolt colon double slash localhost, and the username and the password would be username is Neo4j. That's what we saw, and the password was pass. I hope these are the property names. So Spring Data Neo4j URI is this, username is that. That's it. So we don't have to have any other configuration. Meanwhile, we also need to create the query, right? So we need to provide a query. So this query is nothing but the Cipher query language. So this is not the normal query which we used to use, which we use with the SQL language. So the query which we require here is for selecting all the users who have rated different movies. I need to say match all my users. So I'm going to provide my user a variable name called user, and all these users are related or rated, right? All these users rated different movies, so I'm going to call it as R. Rated is going to be called as R, and different movie. So I'll tell you what these are, and I'm going to finally say return u comma r comma m. So what we are doing here is we are going to use the node of type user and name it as u, and we are going to see what all movies of type m, right, rated by the users. So this is the convention. So you can run this particular query inside a Neo4j instance. So this is the query which we are going to use. Now I'll just show you how we can query using this query inside a graph database. So let me refresh so that I can connect it again. So I'm connecting to the console here, and this is the console where you can write queries in order to retrieve data from the graph database. So this is the database. So right now there is nothing here. We are going to inject some dummy data, and then we are going to see. So let's see what happens. See, when I do the match query, it says no rows. If you provide a wrong query, let's say I don't provide some data here, this is going to throw us some exception. See that u is not defined and you're trying to return. That's what it is trying to say. So this is nothing but a select query in a Neo4j database, and this language with which you are writing, this is called as Cipher query language. Now let's try adding some dummy data. I want to have lots of users, I want to have lots of movies. Let's try adding them, right? What I'll do is I'll just create a movie called as inception. This is a variable I'm going to say, and this is of type movie. So I'm going to create a node of type movie, and the variables which I have are the title. That's what we added, right? In the movie, what do we have? Title and director. So I'm going to add the movie title as inception and the director as Christopher Nolan. That's it. I'm going to close this. So one variable is created, sorry, one node is created, and I'm going to refer this node as inception. So this whole node, right, whatever movie, whatever we created, we can call it as inception. So wherever we are using downstream, you can just use this inception word for this particular node. Parallelly, I'm going to create one more movie called as Dark Knight movie. I'm going to provide the same title colon the dark KNIGHT, director as Christopher Nolan. That's it. So I have created two movies. Now we need to create users. So I'll just say create. Similar to the movie node, we have to create a user node. That is what we have here, right? We're going to create a user node here. So let's go and create the user node. I'm going to call them as Peter of type user. For the user, I need to provide name and age, right? I'm going to say Peter. Age for Peter is 30, and I'll just close it. That's it. I don't have any other field, right? So let me copy this guy. I'm going to create three different users, and we will have two movies. So one is Peter, another one is Sam, and another one is Ryan. So I'll just say Ryan A, Sam, Sheldon, Peter, right? I'll just say age for this guy is 20, this guy is 35. That's it. So we have created different nodes. When I run this query, it will create different nodes. But before that, I want to also create some relationship by default, right? So what I will do is I'll create relationships now. So in order to do that, we need to do a create, and I want to create relationship across these nodes, right? There is one node called inception, and there are different users. So I'll create a relationship for inception. And what kind of relationships do we have? So we have rated relationship, right? That is what we created here. If you hear, we created a relationship called rated. You can have multiple relationships. It is not necessary that you should have only one relationship. You can have user related to multiple stuff, right? So I'm going to create a rated. So inception was rated by whom? So I'm going to provide Peter. So first Peter has rated inception, and this name should match. So this node name, this name should be matching the type here. So this is nothing but the node name. That is why I'm going to show here together, right? And this is rated by Peter, and I also want the rating to be stored somewhere. So I'm going to say Peter has given the rating of 9. So this is like a property over that particular relationship. So you can have properties over relationship. Later on, when you want to query with a relationship rating of more than 9 or 8, then you can even do that. So we have two different nodes called Peter and inception, and you have rated this together and saying that with the rating 9. Same way we can do that for other users as well. I'll just copy this guy. So inception is now rated by Sam, and I'll give a rating of 8. Same way, there is a movie called Dark Knight. I'll say Dark Knight is rated by Sam as 9, and I'll also add Peter. Peter has rated 8 for Dark Knight, right? So that is it. So these are the relationship I want to add initially. Later on, I will show you how we can add or modify relationships. So for now what we can do is we can just run this query. This will add different nodes and its relationship. So let me run it. Okay, there is something which is missing. Let me go and see. Okay, there is a comma missing in each, because I'm going to say create and then I'll just say end this guy. So the query is running now. This will create a relationship and the nodes. See this in the left side, you can see different node labels. Node labels are the nodes for a movie node. Let's see what are the different types of movie nodes. There are two movies called, one is called Dark Knight, and if you see here below, there is a if you see in the below, there is a property which says director is Christopher Nolan and title is The Dark Knight. Same way for Inception, it's the same thing. If I click on user, the user node will show up. There are three users: Ryan age 35, Sam age 20, and Peter age 30. So these are different nodes. So this is what we call as nodes in a graph. And if I click on the relationship, that is when it will show the relationship across these nodes. So see that the relationship between Inception and Sam is Sam rated this movie, same way Peter rated this movie, same way the Dark Knight is rated by these two, right? Now we have created this REST endpoint. I think we can bring this server up now, right? Let me go and bring the Spring Boot application up. Now that we have, okay, now we have to query this, right? Let's try if this query matches. We were trying that, right? Let's try if this query matches whatever query we wrote, because this is the query which Spring Boot is going to run. See that it is matching and it is returning 4 records, basically 2 movie nodes and 2 user nodes. So let's bring this Spring Boot application up and see if we are able to query in the same way. So whatever Cipher query language which we used, that is run from the UI which Neo4j is providing. The same way we are going to use Spring Boot application to connect to this instance and query it. The Spring Boot application is up now, so there is no problem with starting up. So the port number with which it is running is 8081. Now it is also connected to the Bolt using the Bolt driver in the same port. So we are using the password, username and the password which we connected here, right? Now let's go to the URL, the REST endpoint, localhost colon 8081 rest slash neo4j slash user. So this is the user URL which we have given, right? So I'm hitting the same URL wherever it is. Which one is this? Let me maximize this. So rest slash neo4j slash user. Let's see if the data has come. Yep. If you notice here, the data has got retrieved. So there are two users called Sam and Peter, and it is showing Sam has rated Dark Knight and Inception. Same way Peter has rated Dark Knight and Inception. So let's go and see the logs if it shows up whether it has queried. Yeah, see that the bold request which was sent to the Neo4j server was match the user, whatever. Now let's try changing the data, and we wanted to see whether the data is getting reflected or not. Now I need to add a new user called Ryan, right? I already added the user, but now I want to add more rating for him, right? Since we already created the node, we need to now retrieve the node back, right? In order to retrieve the node back, we can do this. We can just say retrieve my movie. So I want to retrieve Dark Knight movie. I want to provide the name for this movie, which is starting with title The Dark Knight. So this will now retrieve the data and return it to me. So in order to see that, we have to do like this, Dark Knight. So this is like a select query. So I'm going to do a select star from movie where title is Dark Knight. That is what we are doing. So this is what this means. So it is working fine. Now I need to modify only this with the new relationship. So I'll just say have this as my movie. Also I need the user. The user we created was Ryan, right? I need to provide this guy now. I need to say use the movie Dark Knight and also the retrieve the user called Ryan and create a relationship on them. Dark Knight. I need to create a relationship. So say this will be the same query, the rated relationship and the rating which I need to provide. I will say rating provided by Ryan is 8, and finally I need to say this is related with Ryan. So I hope you understood this. Let me explain this again. So first what we did is we did a select query on the movie to see whether it is getting retrieved. So we are querying only Dark Knight and providing the user node as Ryan, getting both and then linking them together, saying these both are rated. The relationship is now created with the rated relationship and the rating is 8. So let's try running this. Hopefully it should work. Yeah, so it has now done something. Let's go to the rated relationship and see. Now, if I go to the rated relationship and see that the Dark Knight movie is rated by Peter, Sam, and also Ryan, right? That is what now we did. So let's go and query the same REST endpoint. We should see Ryan's data also. See that we got a new data and which is Ryan. So this is how you can query the Neo4j database from a Spring Boot application. In the next video, what we will do is we will try to create and delete relationships. What we did currently is we tried to delete and create relationships from the UI, and then we were just querying the Spring Boot application. In the next video, we will try to create and update or delete relationships via the Spring Boot application. As always, this code will be available in the GitHub repository. You can go and fork it from there. If you have any queries or if you want me to make a video on specific topic, do let me know in the comment section below. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. Meet you again in the next video. Thank you very much.